Royal Rumble 1988. This is the start of my Royal Rumble series. I will be reviewing every Royal Rumble leading up to WrestleMania 37. I honestly don't have time to review every Rumble before this year's Rumble, so that would be insane. I don't have time for that. So, starting out with the first ever Royal Rumble event. This was not on pay-per-view. This was on TV to compete with the NWA Bunkhouse Stampede Finals on January 24th of 1988. And this event took place in Ontario, Canada at the Cops Coliseum in front of 18,000 fans. We had Jesse Ventura and Vince McMahon both on commentary for this one. And I always loved them as a commentary team. It's one of my favorites. And Jesse Ventura is probably my favorite commentator of all time. Either him or Lance Russell. One of those two. So, like I said, this was not on pay-per-view. There were a few trial Royal Rumble matches before this. This is the first televised one. But there were a few test runs. There was like a 10-man, I think one-man gang won the 10-man test run. And, there were some others on house shows, just kind of testing it out, seeing if the crowd's into it or not. And yeah, the rest is history. Obviously, it was a very successful concept. A lot of people will say it's their favorite pay-per-view of the year. I think most people would actually say that. Survivor Series for me, but most people, the majority, this is like their Christmas in terms of wrestling pay-per-views. So the first match, we had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat versus Rick Rude. This went 17 minutes. This was, to me, this was probably my favorite match of the night. I think it's a very underrated gem. Not many people talk about this. This was a very slow build. Obviously, it's 17 minutes, which back then was a decently long time for a WWF show. It wasn't often a non-main event match would have 17 minutes, just this random exhibition match. Former Intercontinental Champion Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, of course, an all-time great, and Rick Rude. What can you say about that? It's going to be gold, and I thought it was. A lot of people would probably complain about the slow pace. There was a lot of submission holds. There was a lot of rest holds. But to me, this was a beautifully crafted match. I'd say it's a solid 4-star match. The match ended with Rick Rude being disqualified after knocking the referee. And then throughout this entire match, if you notice, look in the background. As I was watching this match, I heard this really annoying noise. And I'm just like, what the hell is that? And turns out there is an audience member at ringside who has a megaphone. They brought a megaphone into the arena. And she's just yelling shit out. She's like, oh, Rick Rude, I hope that hurt. Oh, fuck you. She didn't say fuck you, but close to it. Because this was a really good heel babyface match. The crowd was into it. The megaphone lady was into it. She was probably like, I don't know, 20, something like that. And eventually it got confiscated pretty early on in the show. I almost said pay-per-view. So, like I said, this was a great back and forth match. I really enjoyed this one. And I do have to mention, this crowd was so into this entire show. A very hot crowd. There were some crazy pops. The women's tag team title match, the crowd was really into that. Probably the biggest pop of the night, which we'll get to that. The Rumble match, people loved it. Jake Roberts got a huge pop. Jim Duggan was really over with this crowd. So, this whole show was kind of advertising the February 5th match between Hogan and Andre the Giant, that big rematch before the title would be vacated before WrestleMania 4. And you got to remember, this was kind of your little road to WrestleMania 4. And, this was all kind of, leading up to the February 5th event. And then, that would slowly build up to WrestleMania 4. And, Ted DiBiase had great heat at this time, great character. I always loved the $1 Million Man. And, Andre, it's Andre. What can you say? The fucking 8th wonder of the world. So, next we had... Okay. This actually put me to sleep, this segment. And that means that it did a really good job. You had Dino Bravo trying to lift, I think it was like 705 pounds or something around there for the world record. And Jesse the Body Ventura was spotting him. And this segment was geniusly boring. Even Vince McMahon later on would say that that segment almost put him to sleep. It put me to sleep. I had to rewind it to rewatch it. That's how drawn out and boring this was, but that's effective heat. So that's what it was supposed to do. It was supposed to drag out until you're just sick of seeing this heel tactics. But, they kept adding weight, and eventually Jesse Ventura basically helped him lift it. And then they were celebrating that they won, they got the world record. Good stuff. And it was very clear that Jesse Ventura helped him. He was just spotting him. So next up we had the Jumping Bomb Angels versus the Glamour Girls. 2 out of 3 falls match for the women's tag team titles. That's right, folks. Bayley and Sasha Banks or whatever were not the first WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. These belts, very obscure, but very great design, too. I love the design of these belts. That's what a wrestling belt should look like. Yeah, beautiful belts. Go ahead and Google that. Actually, right there, if you can see it. Right there. So, yeah. Great belt design. Love it. This match went 15 minutes even. What are the odds? And then, basically, the reason because there are two out of 3 falls matches on this card. The way I see it, segments for commercials. Because like I said, this is televised. So the best way to not interrupt a match is just to have multiple falls. I'm surprised they didn't do this more often, It's a good way to not interrupt the pacing of a good match. And like I said, I think it was a little bit of genius there. Thank you. I love 2 out of 3 falls matches. They're my favorite type of match. So yeah, the commercials weren't a problem during this event. There were only commercials after segments and after a fall, which, well done. Thank you. Don't ruin the pace of a match. This is why I don't like televised wrestling. Because you're getting really into a match, and then you see a suicide dive, or someone gets thrown out of the ring, you're like, oh, here comes the commercial. So, yeah. Yeah, like I said, this is, I don't think it's match of the night, but I definitely really loved this. This is back before women's wrestling was eye candy. This was when we had, a lot of really talented women. You didn't have to have a bra and panties match. You didn't have to, jump around in pudding or mud. But, yeah. The Angels, these two were phenomenal. The crowd were so into them. They were from Japan. I was a little bothered that they didn't even mention their real names. Vince is like, well, I don't speak Japanese, so I don't know their names. Like, come on. Show a little fucking respect. Basically, like, kind of putting them down, putting them lower, like, fuck Japanese wrestling type thing. So the first fall occurred when Judy Martin got tagged in the match and then hit a reverse powerbomb to the Red Angel. And got the 3 count, and, they're all celebrating. And then we have our commercial break. And then the Red Angel hits a sunset flip on Judy Martin. And then the Bomb Angels even the contest out. And then the third fall occurred when the Bomb Angels, the Jumping Bomb Angels, they hit a double drop kick. Beautiful double drop kick. I love that. And, the crowd went nuts. They absolutely loved the finish. They were totally into this match, and so was I. I really enjoyed this match. Definitely a very fast-paced match. It's a good, 3.5-star match. I really enjoyed it. So, going on to the Royal Rumble. That's right, this is not the main event. The reason I think this wasn't the main event was just so they could basically put the 2 out of 3 falls match last, so you can have your final commercial breaks and all that. If this were a pay-per-view, I think it's very obvious this would have been the main event, but it's not. It's TV. You got to structure it differently than you would a pay-per-view. So Bret Hart and Tito Santana were out first, and Bret Hart lasted the longest here, 25 minutes and 42 seconds. We had Butch Reed coming in, and then Jim Neidhart came in and basically helped out Bret Hart. We had Jake Roberts, like I said, who got a great pop when he came out. Harley Race made his little appearance here. Not in the best shape of his career, but, he's there, Not the King Harley Race we all knew and loved, but, yeah. You have other people like Danny Davis. You have Sam Houston, Boris Zukov. And then Nikolai Volkov actually tried to come out with Don Morocco, because Don Morocco was 11, then Nikolai Volkov was 12. So he literally just was running after Don Morocco, and the referees are like, no, you can't come in, it's not your number yet. So then he's just standing out there arguing, and then number 12 hits, and then he just gets in the ring. That's really, to me, that's like it's testing out some early fuckery in a Rumble match, as I would put it. We had Ron Bass, we had Brian Blair. And then your final entrant was Junkyard Dog at number 20. So this is not your 30-man Rumble. It's just your 20-man, which, I think it's a good number. This match went 33 minutes. So I don't mind the 20-man Rumble. There's been some Rumbles that are really hard to get through. Like the 40-man. That was awful. You know how long it took me to get through that thing? So 20-man, I actually like 20-man a lot. 30 works if you have a packed roster, but if you're just going to throw a bunch of enhancement talent in there and, jobbers, if you want to call them that, I don't think we want to see 25 of them and then 5 stars. You have to really balance it out. The enhancement talent has to enhance the stars. But it's just like the 40-man Rumble was just, it was all guys that you're just like, oh, they're still with WWE, okay. Oh, that person's still signed, that's cool, he has a job. And then you had like 4 people who were widely known. So yeah, I think the roster here was great. These 20 men were great. It was a very fun match, very fast-paced. I enjoyed this Rumble a lot. And, of course, Jim Duggan won the match. Jim Duggan was in the match for 14 minutes and 44 seconds, so he had a good showing. He had 3 eliminations, and he also was tied with Don Morocco for the most eliminations, who had 3 as well. So, overall, I think this was just a great Rumble match to start out, and how I'm going to do this is I'm going to give the pay-per-view a rating, your letter grade, and then I'm going to rate the Rumble matches throughout all these reviews with star ratings. This Rumble match I'll give 3 stars, obviously out of 5. So, 3-star Rumble match, it's good, I enjoyed it a lot. So, yeah, and then we go to our main event. We had the Islanders versus the Young Stallions, Paul Roma and Jim Powers. This one was around 14 minutes, another 2 out of 3 falls match. And throughout this whole show, there were a lot of segments hyping Hogan and Andre. And, which is good, you gotta hype your big rematch. But I had a little problem with this match. So after the one fall, they actually cut to a promo with Andre the Giant and, Ted DiBiase and stuff. Look, it's fine if you want to take a commercial break after a fall and all that stuff, but I don't really think you should have promos after a fall. It's just kind of, it's a little iffy to me. But, whatever. This is not a main event. It really does not feel like it. This, honestly, to me, is the least interesting match on this entire card. I would honestly rather have had this be the second match and then put the women's tag belts on last, because that was at least an exciting match that the crowd was into. The crowd was, you know, they're dead after the Rumble match. You can't put anything after the Rumble. I always believe that. It's called the Royal Rumble pay-per-view for a reason. Have that match go on last. So, yeah, this was just a very, I don't know, average, boring main event. The first fall occurred when Paul Roma was counted out at 7 minutes, giving the first fall to the Islanders. And then we had the Ted DiBiase promo, and to give, you know, the teams a break. But like I said, I think it's a little too much of a break, and it takes you out of the match. Because after the promo, you're like, oh yeah, there's a match going on. Fuck me. But yeah, like I said, the crowd was not into this, and neither was I, quite honestly. We have Haku submitting Paul Roma with a single leg Boston Crab at 14 minutes in the match. So they won 2-0. So there you go. The Islanders, yippee. Fucking yippee-yo, kaye. Great. Good stuff. And approximately 7 minutes for each fall. So, you know, it really didn't need to be a 2 out of 3 falls match, but whatever. So, this is like your basic 2-star tag team match, honestly. Like, there's really just nothing to it. This felt like a dark match. It just should have been a dark match. Fuck it. But, alright. Overall rating, letter grade for this pay-per-view. The way I look at it, this was an experiment, and you're seeing it in its infancy. And for an experiment, I thought this worked really damn well. I love this Rumble match. So yeah, Rumble match 3 stars, and I'll give the pay-per-view a B-. Not a pay-per-view. I keep calling it a fucking pay-per-view. The TV show event, B-. And, you know, I loved the women's tag team match. I loved the opener between Steamboat and Rick Rude. I thought that was great. So overall, good show. B-. And down below, give me your thoughts. And this is going to be a long ride. We have 88 all the way to 2020. Well, I'll do 2021 at the very end. So yeah, doing all of them here. Hope you guys enjoy this. For now, this has been the DVD Freak. Peace out.